Welcome to the podcast that refuses to let you live on autopilot. This isn't about motivation quotes or someday plans. It's about real tools, clear decisions, and the strategies that turn intention into momentum. Your presenters are coaches and truth tellers who live this work. They help people break stuck patterns, cut through the noise, and build lives that actually move forward. No theory, no fluff, just execution. This is for people done circling the runway, ready to choose growth over comfort, ready to build their best life on purpose. Lean in. Here are your hosts, Christine Baylor-Goodlander and Melanie Olivieri.
Good morning, beautiful people. This is Melanie from Collaborative Growth Coaching, and welcome to today's podcast. This is going to be a one of two podcast, and it's all about breaking the mold. It's who are we, how did we get to who we are, and how do we get to who we would like to be? So today we're going to focus on kind of dismantling the limiting beliefs that we have and embracing our authenticity and being our true selves. So what is breaking the mold? It's stepping beyond our limitations. It's letting go of the old labels, the things that people put on us and that we put on ourselves, and letting go of self-doubt. It's stepping into our authentic, bold lives, the lives we were really made for. Did you ever run into someone who looks like they've totally got it all together? They've got a good job and they've got a family and they've got, they're not worried about bills any more than the whole world is right now. But you know what I mean. I had a client and she came in recently and she actually said during our conversation that she's like, I've checked every box. I've done everything right. But I feel like I'm waiting for permission to be myself. Have you ever felt like that? I know I did. Back when I was younger, I went to nursing school, pretty much straight out of high school. And I did it for a few years. And I'm like, this is not me. This is not for me. What I wanted was to help people. And I didn't feel like I could do that in the situations I was in. So I explored a few things. I talked to my parents. I was in my 20s. And I went from being an LPN to being an RN. I went from one box to the next box. Took me a long time to figure out I didn't need those boxes. So what are limiting beliefs? By simple definition, they're the invisible fences around our lives. We don't always see them, but we bump up against them every time we try to make a change. Have you felt those fences? Some common examples are, I'm not enough, or it's too late for me. It's not. Or people like me, we just don't get to do that. I've bumped up against all of them. Have you? What others have you bumped up against that keep you right where you are? So take a second and pause this and ask yourself, what's the belief I've been bumping into lately? Because sometimes circumstances bring things to the forefront that if we stop and step back, we see we've been trying to go this way, but the same limiting belief is stopping us time and again. So take a moment and see if something like that has been coming up for you lately. There's this analogy that we use, and it's fleas in a jar. And did you know if you put fleas in a jar and put a lid on it, the scientists actually did this. They'd come up with some strange things. But anyhow, when you put fleas in a jar, because they bump into the lid, they learn they can only jump so high. If you take the lid off, they'll still only jump so high. They won't jump out of the jar. because they've been taught to believe they can't jump any higher. So, how do we dismantle those limiting beliefs? We use a method called the 3 Qs. So, we recognize 3 Qs, 3 questions. We recognize a thought. So, we catch that thought. We'll be doing something and it's like, oh, that looks so interesting. I'm too old to change my life now. How often does that thought come up? Or other people can do that, but I can't do that. Why? Who told you that? And how many times have you reinforced it to yourself? So catch the thought and notice what's playing in your mental background. And then ask these questions. Whose voice is this? Is it your voice telling yourself over and over again? Is it a parent or a grandparent or a spouse or your best friend? It doesn't have to be a stranger. It doesn't have to be someone who means you harm. It's someone who's trying to keep you safe. But safe can be constricting. So where did you pick up that belief? And notice, is that belief really truth? Or is it just a really well-practiced thought? And replace it with, if I knew this belief wasn't true, what would I try? What's a more empowering thought? That looks really interesting, but I can't do that. That looks really interesting. Maybe if I make this one little step, it'll take me a step closer to being able to do that. Notice the difference? Mary Morrissey, you've heard us talk about her. She says, and you need to believe this. You need to keep saying it till you believe it. You need to let us believe it for you until you can believe it. You are more than any circumstance, situation, or limiting belief. You're a spiritual being worthy of living your vision. Listen to that again. You are more powerful than any circumstance, situation, or limiting belief. And let that sink in for a second. So, again, pause if you need to, but write down one limiting belief that you have. Just real quick, write it down because we all have them. And then next to it, write, if I didn't believe this, I would. And finish the sentence. I'll be here when you come back. So, along with limiting beliefs, we also need to kind of embrace we need to embrace our authenticity. Authenticity is like finally switching from black and white to full color. If you grew up when I did, you started with black and white. And then when full color came along, it was like, wow, bang. This is amazing. Now they got 3D and they've got everything out there. But just that switch from black and white to color, the world opens up as you turn up as you. You are full color. Allow yourself to be full color. When I stepped out of nursing, I didn't know what I was doing. I honestly went and worked in a gas station because I knew I wasn't where I needed to be, but I wasn't yet sure where I needed to go. Crazy, right? Go from nursing to working in a gas station? But that's what I did. And I discovered yoga and I discovered Reiki and I discovered along the route to finding where I wanted to go next, massage, and then coaching. But through that entire journey and letting go of those limiting beliefs, I found me. My first workshop, I was terrified to tell my actual story. I'm like, who wants to hear that, right? But when I let myself be real and I share both the messy and the magnificent, that's when people lean in, because that's what real life is. It's messy and it's magnificent. And that's when transformation happens, when you let yourself open up to the messy so that you can just transform. Dr. Seuss, I love Dr. Seuss. In particular, I love this saying: be who you are and say what you feel, because those who mind don't matter, and those who matter don't mind. Be you. And it's hard. It's hard the first time you say, I'm going to stand up in front of this group of people and tell them who I am and how I came to be who I am now from where I was. It's hard to walk into the office and say, I'm handing in my resignation because I am not fulfilled in this job anymore. Or to go back to school and say, oh God, please don't let me be the only student in class at 50 years old. Yes, been there, done that. But if you need permission, think about it this way. The people you love, they want the real you. The people who can find you for help, the people whose lives you can help change, but the people who matter, they want the real you, and the rest, they're not your real tribe. So I'm going to give you a challenge for this week. I want you to choose one just tiny act or big act, but even just one tiny act of authenticity. Do you usually go to work in grays and blacks? Wear something bold. Beat the weather and wear something bright red or pink or whatever. When somebody asks your opinion, don't give them the company line. Give them your opinion. Start a conversation. Or make that step. Say, I'm going back to school. Say, I'm going to look for the next job. Or I'm going to teach a class. Whatever it is that feels right to you. And like I said, it doesn't have to be a big class. You could simply go on Facebook or whatever social media you use and say, today I did this. And the next step is you can go on and record it and say, I did this. And somewhere down the road, you can go on and you can do a live. And that's a whole nother ballgame in itself. And then when you make that little step, notice, how does it feel to be more you? Even if it feels a little vulnerable, a little uncomfortable, deep beyond that, how does it feel to be you? So DM us, DM me, tag me in this. Let me help you celebrate your authentic self. Let me know what you did. Let me know how it felt. And let me help celebrate with you. The mold was never meant for any of us, yet most of us slip into it. All greatness begins when we choose to break free and bring our true selves to the table. Your authenticity, that's your superpower. The minute you believe even a little bit that you can, you can. So if this episode spoke to you, if you know somebody that needs maybe to hear this, share it with a friend who's ready to break their mold too. And come back and join us next week for part 2. In the meantime, have a wonderful day, have a wonderful week, and be a brave thinker. We're rooting for you. Bye for now.